fee. So, but that's the difference between, again, understanding just the how and understanding the why, and the why is going to help you, in a number of ways. So I have essentially just 4 slides, 5 slides, to the left, so I'm not going to convey, all of that, experience, and the application is big. It's 2 million lines of code, a lot of areas in 5 slides. But we'll talk about briefly the industry level, things to be aware of, some of the constraints and that you need to be aware of. Depending on time, we'll see if we can create that little quick actors and flows diagram. If not, that's something we take a picture every time we go through this. We take a picture of the diagram. So worst case scenario, if we run out of time, I'll send you a picture of the last one we did, and I'd like for you over time to build your own. That's essentially, I'm not from the beer business. I'm a business analyst by trade. So when I was hired, again, for the process, and re-engineering of that company, first thing we did was evaluate their infrastructure and the IT side, change their network, change their servers and so on. Looked at the route accounting piece. Well, I didn't know anything about that business. So my first 3 weeks, I sat down, behind everybody, at everybody's desk for 3 weeks, just understanding, okay, hey, you're doing this. What are you doing and why? And I came up, with that, oh, you're talking to the bank, you're talking to the state, you're talking to the supplier, and you're trying to do this, or you're sending them your forecast so that they know what to produce and so on. So over 3 weeks, I built up, that particular framework. I'd like for you guys, again, to kind of do that as well, so that you develop your own understanding of of those various flows. And then I have 3 slides that present on the sales, administration, and inventory side what the core. There's about 28 to 30 core processes that they're, some of them are self-explanatory, and a minute you'll recognize, okay, record setup for products. Okay, they get a new product, they set it up. Okay, over time you'll see that there's a lot of nuances. You can set it up, and there's all kinds of permissions and setups and flags that that are associated. But some of them may be new to you, like the AP side and state tax reporting and controller reports and things of that nature. So again, I don't want you to be disappointed if you don't know everything at the end of the day. But definition of success is, this is the scope of what ideally I'll know, in 3 months, So bonus points if it's 2. But so beer business. It's something to know. It's highly regulated. There are a variety of federal and state regulations that govern the beer business. Why? Well, because when they didn't have the regulations, things went poorly. So something that happened originally was when the beer business started to grow, a couple hundred years ago. And I've got a book about this if you want to learn about it. It's kind of interesting. There were tacit arrangements between the brewers and the establishments that sold beer, which at the time was mostly bars. They didn't have Meyer 200 years ago. So what happened is that Marlene would start her own brewery and make a pretty good beer, and then you would go to a couple of bars and say, hey, look, they didn't have neons at the time, but that bar of yours is a little old. I'll pay for a new one, if you want, and I'll buy you chairs and stools and tables, and so on, if you only sell my beer. And the bars would go, okay, yeah, absolutely. So at first it would work out, and then you would go, huh, hey, I've got them now. It was the tied house system, or you would have these accounts tied, to your own brewery, contractual agreements, and then you would start raising prices. And and then so customers would end up paying more, and those bars, well, they owed you because you gave them some money, and and so on. So that tied house system was bad, because it ended up costing everybody more, and it was killing competition. You were preventing the other guys, from starting up or selling and so on. So it was a lose situation, because prices were higher, the selection, wasn't as good. Jobs were not created because, hey, why get into the business, I mean, so that was called the tied house system. So the U.S. came up with a 3-tier system where you would have a definite separation of the suppliers, distributors, and retailers. Okay, so it's the law in most states. There's some states where it's not necessarily the law, but essentially you'll see that 3-tier system term used on the regular basis. There's all kinds of challenges to it, as you can imagine, because Walmart is saying, look, I'm more efficient with my network. If Miller sold me the beer directly, I mean, we could save 25% on the cost, which is essentially the margin that that the beer distributors take. You essentially have 20 to 22% type margin on your products. So there's restrictions. In most states, a supplier cannot own part of a distributor or part of a retailer, and vice versa. So the retailers cannot own parts of the suppliers or distributors, and essentially it's a cost choice trade-off. By throwing a distributor in the middle, well, they're going to take their cut. If you add a middleman, but it's opening up opportunities like those craft brewers that are exploding right now in a good way, in sales and everything. Well, you can imagine that if you are, in Grand Rapids and you've got a small, microbrewery and you're trying to sell, to customers, well, you're not going to sell enough, to justify having, a big truck and sending pre-sellers to sell what? Your 4 products. And each delivery you're going to make is 1 or 2 cases at a time. I mean, it would never work. So what you're going to do is sell your products to a distributor that has that existing delivery network. It's like FedEx. They've got the planes, going from one place to the other. Might as well, they want to maximize how much, they put, on those planes. Well, here it's the trucks. You have a distributor that has their routes. They're going to make deliveries on a weekly basis, and they're wanting to have as much, to deliver, So you sell to those distributors, you sell your products, and then these guys will go out and make, and sell and deliver, for you. So what is the advantages for customers? And by customers, I mean end customers like us. Well, you go to Meijer and you have 200 beers, because they have a lot of that guy's going to come in and make a delivery of all those various beers, and it's you get a lot of selection. You pay more for all of those because the middlemen took their cut, but because they help with competition. You have all those craft guys and bud guys and so on that have access to the retailer, even though the middleman the middleman takes a cut. It's better than if Meijer was tied to a particular supplier, because eventually the prices would be much higher anyway. So now the distributors are protected by law in most states. It's called franchise laws, where you cannot, as a supplier, take away the brands. If I'm Miller Coors and I gave Marlene the rights to Miller Coors in Western Michigan, I can come in and say, oh, by the way, you built that delivery network. You have pre-sellers that go out and talk up my brands with retailers. You've spent money on neons. You have my Miller Coors decals on your trucks. You've established a relationship where that customer that used to love all the Bud products, you've helped them many times. You've recommended the right promotions. You've managed the shelf space properly and so on. So you've built that brand equity in the market. Oh, let me take that back, and I'm going to give this to my nephew. Now he's going to sell my products. So distributors, since they go through that investment, they want it to be protected. So you have franchise laws in most states that will prevent suppliers from doing just that. So there's arbitration procedures where if I'm not happy with your performance, I have a way, to contest, your performance and ability. I have to document it, and then I can take my brands back. But it's expensive, it's a long process, and so on. So But in South Carolina, the law was if a supplier wanted to take a brand from a distributor, they had to leave the state, the entire state, for 3 years, and then they could come back and redistribute their brands. So you can imagine, you're not happy because, okay, this guy's not doing well in Milwaukee Best.
The supplier would have to?
The supplier would have to stop selling in the state, the entire state, if they pulled brands from one distributor. So again, strong protection, But anyway, in a nutshell, those components, separation of ownership, the cost choice trade-off, where you're essentially putting a middleman in the middle, but it's putting a downward pressure on prices because you do have competition, and it's allowing, for better selection. That's essentially what, the three-tier system is out to protect. You have protection of the distributors and their investment in brands. To be honest, some of our distributors, you have customers like Andrews that will tell you, we build brands. It's like Apple. They feel like they're not, that they're not, a distribution, facility. They're a marketing company, and they get it, We have some customers that, hey, I have rights to this, I'm just selling it. I'm sitting back, just waiting on the orders to come in. We have some of those, and to be honest, that's that was kind of the MO, for beer distributors. I know I'm going on record here, but you had they're not the most proactive, bunch, and for years, they are super dedicated to the business. Talking to Jay Trombley, he works for Andrews now, but he was the IT director at Schenck, one of our customers, and he said the only time he's seen that level of dedication to getting the product out and to getting that kind of dedication is in the healthcare business where you have lives in your hands. So when you guys go out to a distributor, you may be surprised by, wow, that truck broke down. Instead of, most people would go, okay, well, we'll deliver that the next day. No, it's like DEFCON 5, it's the end of the world, and we gotta make the delivery because our customers may be out, it's gonna be lost sales for them and so on. So they take this extremely seriously, okay? So they're highly, highly effective. But they were not necessarily the most efficient, like I said, going to the point of delivering a case, hey, 30 miles out, I made that case and delivery, and you lost, $3 on that, because whatever margin you had in fuel and missed time and so on. So they're trying to be more and more efficient, and that's one of the reasons they look to eoStar to provide some visibility, reporting capabilities, streamlined processes. That's why they go with us, because the other guys are still on legacy systems, most of the other guys, where their applications are full featured, but they have limitations, because green screen application, well, they use the lipstick and a pig type approach where they'll put some screen scraping and have an HTML, front end on top of, a green screen application, but still, their schemas don't work and so on. So a lot of our competitors are essentially rewriting their apps right now, and since they've been promising this for 10 years, that opened the door for us, as a new entrant. In the market. Encompass is a competitor of ours that's doing very well. We target, the large guys. These guys are more of a kind of cookie cutter application, but it's a web-based app. Works well for what it does. They're starting to go after more of our market because they've grown over the past, the past 10 years. So we're gonna have to put a stake in the ground, but that's the two type, that's kind of the two main companies with momentum, in the market right now, us and them, because brand new applications, and good coverage in terms of features. We tend to attract the bigger ones because we have a better app, and we do, have that approach of, we don't want the system to dictate your business processes to an extent. It's more the other way around. The other guys, they were founded by a beer distributor, so they have a good understanding of the beer processes, but their application kind of dictates how you're going to do things. We have one way of doing things. It's a good way. It works 80% of the time, we tend to have, 7 ways of doing things, and that's why, when you need flexibility, you'll go with us, When you're fairly cookie cutter, and again, you're just trying to do the minimum, in all areas, a good job, but the minimum in all areas, and since they're like, half our price, they've been a good alternative for the little guys. So, but now, at the state level, let me see how we're doing on time. Good. At the state level, you'll hear about COD states, cash on delivery. Essentially, states are either COD, meaning you have to pay, for the alcohol when you get it, or your terms, and the terms vary state by state. Montana it's 7 days. New York it's a funky schedule where if you buy within a 2-week period, you have to pay by the next, Thursday of the following week. So whether you bought on the first day of the 2-week period or on the last day, you end up having to pay, the next Thursday. I mean, so we have support for that, obviously. But the idea is that you need to be mindful of, okay, which state are we operating in, because it's going to change, how we handle their terms. So we have full support for that. You may have some state-specific pricing requirements. Some states, again, the whole 3-tier system is about fairness for retailers and customers and distributors and then so on. So you have some states that kind of require that, look, if you're going to charge $10, to Steven, for Miller Lite 6-pack bottles, Marlene needs to get it at $10 too. We have some states where I can look at you and say, hey, I don't like your glasses. It's going to be 11. So there are various requirements. Most states tend toward the fairness approach with single price, but it's not always the case. So and again, I'm talking about the beer side. NA is everybody negotiates their own price on the NA side. So that's different. But within the beer area, there tends to be a single price approach. Now, you will get discounts, and those tend to be quantity based, so that if Marlene buys 100 cases, you get a special discount. If you're a little mom and pop shop, you get the same front line, but you don't get the discounts because you don't buy enough. So that's kind of the way people can still customize the net end price, but the front line price for a single case generally needs to be the same across the board. You have post-off states where you actually have to let your state know about your prices, and if you announce certain prices, you have to stick to them for a particular period. Again, it's just a handful of them, but just wanted to convey that there are some price considerations when it comes to the beer side. Excise tax. Beer is a great source of revenue, alcohol for states. So we have a slew of plugins or capabilities within the application to keep track of your sales, your inventory, and each state taxes things differently. So they have a different tax basis, maybe on a per gallon basis, and it's a percentage of your business. Some states use a depletion method where they don't care what you did with the beer. You have to report your inventory at the beginning of the month, inventory at the end of the month, and the difference, your receipts, which your receipts and your receipt in terms of purchases, the difference you pay tax on. Whether you threw it away, or sold it, they don't care. Beer showed up at your warehouse, it's no longer there, you pay on that, and so on. So an area to learn about, we have a beverage tax plugin that is essentially replacing. We had some state-specific plugins, and after 5 or 6, we realized there's a lot of commonality. Let's take the commonality and throw it into a plugin, and then we can have dedicated reports, for the states. So suppliers. We kind of talked about suppliers. Like I mentioned, you tend to have affiliations. You're either a Miller Coors distributor or a Bud distributor, and then there's a few high-level suppliers like Heineken, Crown does Corona. You have Mark Anthony. They do all of the Mike's Hard Lemonade and things of that nature. You have Guinness Diageo that does Guinness, that does Smirnoff, and then so on. So there's 5 or 6 major suppliers that our customers use, and then on the wine side, it's fun as 300 wine suppliers. So it's highly fragmented. It's completely different there. Um, Suppliers, again, going on record here, and distributors don't necessarily have the best of relationship. I mean, again, it's a mandated three-tier system. Suppliers would love, most of them, would love, the big ones, would love to sell directly to Walmart and make, hey, let's split the 25%, I make 12 and a half more, you make 12 and a half more, and everybody's happy, So it's a cost. So they don't necessarily, trust distributors, and some distributors do just an okay job. I mean, you have to admit it, So they create essentially, rules when they give you brands. These are the things, we want you to run your business that way. First of all, we want visibility into your business, so that's why they want to, receive daily data on how they're doing. Okay, which are the new customers? What are the sales? So the suppliers can evaluate. Dude, you're 30% down this month on this brand. Say you have the sales reps that continuously, go check out on the distributors. And so you'll hear about the MillerCourse standards, for instance. They classify accounts based on their upside and the percentage of the sales they're representing of the distributor, and they'll say, well, these guys you have to visit at least twice a week, and these guys you have to visit at least once a week, and these guys you have to visit at least once every other week. So they have what they call call frequency requirements and so on. So we have them, on the X drive. If you want to read the MillerCourse standards, you can see, what the expectations from the relationship are, from a supplier standpoint. Right? Good, quick read, to understand that. Where the distributors, don't like it. It's classic, they don't like the prescription aspect of it. You're telling me to do this, I know my market more than you do. I mean, I know my retailers. I'm in there every day. I know what sells and doesn't sell. And so it's a constant fight. Plus the suppliers will make obviously cost and price increases. So the suppliers are going to say, I think you should sell this for 11, and by the way, if you sell it for 12, you're making more than we'd like. So we're going to increase your cost. So the suppliers will send you price letters that say, as an independent distributor, you have control over your pricing, but if you don't do what they say, they'll try to recoup that additional margin that you're making. So that's the point of contention, where you're telling me I'm independent, I'm in charge of my market, you're asking me to spend, you have a business plan with MillerCourse, your annual business plan. I'm supposed to invest $100,000 in signs, promotional events and neons and stuff, and then I can't even set my own new prices, So it's not always, a great relationship. It's both ways. I'm not saying either is worse than the other. I mean, suppliers will say, you have out of stocks because you don't have enough inventory, and distributors will go, well, you're cramming inventory down my throat. I already have 3 weeks worth of inventory on this, and it's your fault you don't produce enough and stuff. So, but don't be surprised if, again, when you hear distributors talk about that relationship, it's not, oh, we love these guys, it's kind of like that. Same thing with retailers, to be honest. It's supposed to be a partnership, but retailers, they've got their own agenda, and most of them tends to be pretty hands-off with requirements. You are not, we talked about single pricing earlier, you are not allowed in most states to show favoritism to a retailer. And that means that you're not supposed to provide a service of value to any retailer. Let me give you an example. You're not supposed to do something for a retailer that you wouldn't do for another. Oh, for that bar, we're going to go out and clean their lines, their tap lines. But the other bars, no way. They're on their own. Too bad if their beer tastes funky. That's their problem. So if you do something, you have to provide it to everybody. Otherwise, you're not allowed to. Point of contention with retailers is obviously on the chain side, they have their own stock people that will replenish the shelves. They tend to rely on the beer distributor to do that. So technically it's not legal, but it's done nationwide. Where distributors are having their drivers when they make the delivery, replenish from back stock, clean the shelves, make sure everything is, full and everything. So the retailers started to go, oh, so every time I get a delivery, I get free restocking on my shelves, so I want a delivery every day, which is what we had at Food Lion, they did inventory on Wednesday, so 4 days a week would be in the stores, So beer distributors were like, well, that's kind of inefficient, so they started using merchandisers, and that's what a lot of our customers do now, where they'll have, the driver drop off the beer, and kind of, when he goes there, make sure the account is, their shelves are full and everything. And on the off days, they'll send merchandisers, to, again, pull the product from back stock and so on. So that's kind of a point of contention, because retailers paid nothing for that, and it's a cost, you're sending a guy a van, spending some time, so that you don't have lost sales. So you're helping the retailer, sell, and they're not helping themselves, So again, there are, some friction points in the relationship. But on the other hand, the retailers, do trust you. They do give you that real estate in the store, and you're essentially, for C-stores and so on, you're going to go into stores where they tell you what they want, and you're going to go into stores where they tell you, look, I talked to a C-store owner in Holland a couple weeks ago. He said, I trust him. He places the seasonal beers, he puts whatever beers you want, in there. He's got that real estate, and he's trying to maximize my sales. So if he pulls out a product that's a slow seller and puts in, a new one that he thinks is going to do better, hey, that's his job. He knows what sells in the other accounts, what sells in that particular neighborhood, and so on. So you do have a certain amount of trust, and you have to build that relationship where they trust you and let you, handle. You're the specialist for that product in that area. So, like I said, it's there's a spectrum. You have some points of contention, and you have some collaboration. That goes on, where they'll accept. Oh yeah, put a display here. You're going to take up some of my selling space, but you're going to have a nice Miller Coors sign for the Super Bowl and a 200-case display, and it's going to help our sales. So it's always a fine line, in terms of that relationship. But that's overall some things to be aware of, to be mindful of, when you talk about the beer business. These are some key points. The amount of regulation and so on. Good morning. Soda, not as much. 2 reasons. I didn't finish the slide, and that's reason number 1. And reason number 2, there's essentially, no regulations. So it's completely different. I mean, you do have the supplier relationship as a Coke distributor. 70 to 90% of your products are going to come from the Coke distributor. You have situations like Ozarks that we're rolling out right now, where they also have Dr. Pepper, so they have a couple additional suppliers. So the supplier mix is different, but they essentially run into the same issues. Coke wants their daily sales data and everything, so it's just that it's not. It's way more free form on the pricing. I mean, it's almost, every customer can negotiate their pricing. There's certain things they can do, like buy space at retail, that you can do on the beer side. Like you can say, look, I want this amount of space, I mean, right now I have got this, and you've got Pepsi here. Well, I want to infringe on their space, and I'll give you $300, for that. And okay, sure. So there's certain things you can do that you can't on the beer side. But 2 things that are noteworthy are the fact that on the soda, most of them also produce their product, which on the beer side, we have some of that with Stone Brewing and Harpoon. We have some customers that are producer of beer, and they sell in their local market, and then they sell to other distributors, nationwide or locally. But we have like 3 customers like that: Stone, Harpoon, Hanger. We may have Windy City, so we have 4 customers like that. Almost all of our soda customers do produce, their, not necessarily all of their products, but a good chunk of their products. So what is an exception in our customer base, and in the industry, right? Beer distributors don't produce, it's just, some brewers also sell locally, so that's kind of the exception. Here, that's the norm on the soda side. And if you look at their distribution network, again, Coke is 80% of the has their own network of bottlers and distributors, that are Coke owned, and they use SAP for the flow of information and everything. And then you have that independent network, and that independent network, again, uses, right now they're using, I don't know, they're using like 8 or 10 different, applications, and they're trying to harmonize that onto, eoStar. So, but soda, again, freeform pricing, it's NA, so it's mostly terms. And terms on the NA side are usually net 30. So you make a delivery and you have 30 days, to pay. So no COD, freeform on pricing, but the rest is essentially the same. I mean, this little slide is why Coke chose us, because there's not that much that's different. The rest is, they use the same trailers, they use the same, pre-sale, tail sale, web ordering. I mean, a case of Coke and a case of beer is essentially kind of the same thing. That's why we're back in that industry. So now, like I said, we have just enough time to cover the internal flow, which is the third level, the internal, processes. So we're gonna kind of skip that, but I think it'd be good for you guys. I will email you a picture of the end product, and what I do is, in black, I've got squares with the actors, supplier, state, fintech, VIP, distributor, retailer, and then in red, I show the flow of product. Okay, suppliers send to distributors, and distributors to retailers. Oh, there's product pickups. By the way, in eoStar we have, do you want disallowed pickups, or do you narrow the pickups to just certain items? And in certain states you're not allowed to pick up alcohol, but you can pick up NA products. So, but my point is, having that conversation, we can review and say, oh, you got this flow. Oh, by the way, let's talk about this reverse flow that happens, every once in a blue moon, but that you need to be aware of. So I think that exercise, where we could kind of meet, on a regular basis and see how you've grown your flow, may help us, point you in the right direction, with your understanding of those flows. But in red, product flow; in green, money flow. How's the money flowing? And then in blue, information flow. And spoiler alert: once you're done with the exercise, you'll see that there's a lot of blue arrows. You're going to have 3 or 4, red ones. You're going to have, 3 or 4, green ones, and you'll see that eoStar is an information system. I mean, you'll be surprised by how much information, suppliers exchange with the distributors, vice versa. They send their forecast, their expected purchases. Retailers will, distributors will send advance notifications to retailers. Hey, you're getting this tomorrow, and then they'll send them an electronic bill in the EDI 810 format, and get an electronic payment in 820, and so on. And you'll see, wow, if we're delivering a case of beer, it's pretty, pretty information intensive. So again, a valuable exercise. I will show you the end result, and then we'll coordinate with Ben to have you guys build that flow. I mean, even if it's just 30 minutes a week that you spend on, okay, let's add a couple of additional pieces to the puzzle. Yeah, I think it's better if you build it yourself, because you're going to ask the questions, you're going to have the branching path. Otherwise, total learning of the end product is not going to. I mean, rote learning is not going to help you. Now, third layer, we talked about industry. Then you're going to look at how the various actors exchange product, money, and information between among each other, and then within the distributor, we're talking about micro now. Okay, I get product in, get product out. That sounds pretty simple. There's all kinds of moving parts. So what are those moving parts? I will send that to you, and same thing. It's something that over time, as you guys are fielding calls from customers, you're gonna talk to the other guys that are part of your team leader. You can talk to Ben, to me, to augment your understanding of, okay, the context. Okay, I understand. I'm going to tell him, press this button. That's going to solve your problem. But again, what's going on here? But these are the various processes. So same thing. Over the next couple of weeks, if you guys could review those and highlight the ones that I understand pricing, you know, they want to put a price, you know, for that case of beer. I don't necessarily understand what the pickups are, you know, or what the swaps, or, you know, what's a hot shot, you know. So if you can identify your questions so that we can just sit down, review those, and have, you know, the good, you know, and relevant to your dialogue, that'll be great. But you have the sales side with, you know, record maintenance, pricing, scheduling, when do we visit, you know, who and when, territories, where can we sell stuff. It's not always a single territory. You may have rights for Pabst here, but not there. You know, so you may not have a full truck solution, you know, in all of your areas. How do you manage that? And then you have situations where, yeah, I can sell Miller High Life everywhere in my territory, but that chain, they don't want to carry that product. They only want to carry those 83 products. So, and I'm tired of my, you know, guys ordering the wrong product, because if they order the wrong product, then when my driver gets there, they have to downstack the pallet, take out that case of beer, and it was a nice, neatly, you know, 100 case, you know, pallet. To take one case, it wasted, you know, 20 minutes doing that, and rebuilding the pallet so you can put it back on the pallet jack and take it to the back stock for one pallet. So what can I do, you know, to avoid, you know, this kind of issues? Well, we have authorized item lists, where these are essentially contracts, and you can have, you know, you have a list where those 12 stores, they're Meyer stores, we have 83 products authorized there. That way the pre-seller cannot sell anything else that's not on the list, even though technically they're within their territory where they could. And, or sometimes it's the opposite, where they can buy everything, but they don't want to buy this particular product. We have, you know, the reverse, where you can create exclusions, you know, at the customer, chain, or sales channel level, and say these guys cannot buy those two products. So it's all about, you know, maintenance. What's easier, to create a white list or a black list? Do you, you know, say, do you include or exclude? So we have those territories, we have authorized item lists, we have those exclusions. Well, there's all kinds of things that go into that.